The moment the elevator doors slid open, the entire 42nd floor of Haneul Corporation went silent. You could almost hear hearts stop. Employees froze mid-sentence. Computers stopped clicking. Even the air felt like it stopped moving. Because the woman who stepped out, after 11 long, disappearing years, and was someone no one could ever forget. Aisha Jordan, the brilliant intern who once shocked everyone with her genius. The only foreigner the company ever promoted faster than locals. The woman CEO Min-Jae Park trusted more than anyone, and the same woman who vanished overnight without a single explanation. Rumors had swirled for years. She ran away. He broke her heart. She betrayed the company. No, he'd sent her away. No one ever knew the truth. But today, she returned, and she didn't come back alone. Walking beside her was a boy, maybe 10 years old, with black hair that fell just like Min-Jae's, eyes that held the same quiet storm, a posture so confident it sent a shiver through the crowd. He didn't look similar. He looked identical to CEO Min-Jae Park, a perfect copy. Gasps echoed across the floor. Wait, no way. He looks exactly like the CEO. Is he his son? He has to be. Phones trembled in hands as people tried to sneak photos. Aisha didn't react. She walked as if she owned the building, calm, graceful, unstoppable. The boy matched her steps, silent but alert, like he sensed every whisper around him. When they reached the CEO's office, the office she once entered daily, Aisha paused. Her hand hovered in the air for a second. A deep breath. One firm knock. Everyone held theirs. The door opened, and Min-Jae Park himself stepped out. For the first time in years, he wasn't the cold, stone-faced CEO the world feared. The moment his eyes landed on Aisha, his mask cracked. Shock, recognition, disbelief, and something deeper, something raw, flashed across his face. His voice came out barely above a whisper. Aisha. She lifted her chin. Hello, Min-Jae. But then his gaze shifted to the boy standing beside her, and the world seemed to stop again. Min-Jae's breath hitched. His expression shattered, emotion flooding in like a tidal wave. His eyes widened, softened, then filled with something no one had seen in him before. The boy stared back, unblinking. It was like watching a man look into a mirror that reflected 10 years of his past, a version of himself he never knew existed. Aisha. Min-Jae's voice broke slightly. Who is he? Aisha didn't flinch. He's my son, she said softly. Then she locked eyes with Min-Jae. And he's yours. The hallway erupted, sharp inhales, muffled gasps. But all of it faded as Min-Jae stumbled back a step, gripping the doorframe as if the ground had vanished beneath him. His voice trembled for the first time in his entire career. My son? Aisha nodded. And Min-Jae Park, untouchable, unshakable, unbreakable CEO, felt his world collapse and rebuild in a single heartbeat. Min-Jae Park, South Korea's youngest billionaire CEO, the man whose decisions shaped whole industries, felt his entire world tilt for the first time in over a decade. He had built an empire, survived ruthless business wars, and stood unshaken in front of thousands of employees. But nothing had ever broken him the way losing Aisha did. For 11 years he hid the truth behind a perfectly polished mask. 1. Losing Aisha. 2. The unanswered questions. 3. The silence she left behind. Behind closed doors, the man known for icy control had spent countless nights staring at the last message she ever sent. I'm sorry. I have to go. No explanation. No closure. Just silence. He had searched for her secretly, so secretly not even the board knew. He contacted people she once worked with, reached out to mutual friends in the US, traveled to New York twice just to walk the streets she loved, hoping fate would let him glimpse her once more. But every trail turned to dust. Aisha Jordan had disappeared as if the world swallowed her whole. And yet, here she was, standing right at his door. The same woman whose brilliance challenged him, whose laughter softened him, whose presence once kept him sane through the brutal life of corporate warfare. Min-Jae's chest tightened painfully. Aisha, He breathed, his voice cracking for the first time in years. Her eyes, those warm, steady eyes he remembered too well, softened as she whispered, "Hello, Min-Jae." But then his gaze shifted to the boy, a boy with his jawline, his eyebrows, his intense, calculating eyes, his quiet, guarded expression. It was like looking at a smaller version of himself, recreated cell by cell. The world around Min-Jae vanished. The employees watching from behind their desks faded. The buzzing phones, the whispers, the stunned shock. None of it reached him. There was only the boy, and the possibility that hit him like a punch to the lungs. "Who is he?" Min-Jae whispered, his voice unsteady. Aisha gently placed a hand on the child's shoulder. "This is Aisha Jordan Park," she said slowly, clearly. Then her eyes locked onto Min-Jae's. "My son." Min-Jae felt the air leave his chest. His knees nearly gave way as the name echoed in his mind. Aisha Jordan Park. The boy, his boy, took a small step forward, confusion flickering across his features as he studied the man. Everyone said was a legend. Min-Jae's hands trembled, not from fear, not from anger, but from overwhelming emotion, the kind he had buried beneath years of cold ambition, his lost love, his unanswered past, and a child he never knew existed, all returned in one devastating moment. Memories flashed through his mind. Aisha laughing in the company cafeteria, late-night brainstorming sessions. The night she told him she trusted him more than anyone. The night she vanished. And suddenly, the last 11 years felt like a cruel joke life had played on him. Min-Jae swallowed hard, choking on words. "Aisha, is he really—" She nodded once. "He's yours, Min-Jae." A silent storm crashed through his heart. The strongest CEO in the country, the man feared in boardrooms worldwide, stood trembling like a father meeting his son for the very first time. The moment the door clicked shut behind them, Min-Jae's entire facade, his power, his authority, his legendary composure, collapsed like fragile glass. He turned away from the window, eyes burning, chest rising and falling too fast. "Everyone out," he had ordered, voice sharp enough to scare even the senior managers. Now only 3 people remained: Aisha, her son, and the man whose life had been built on half-truths and stolen choices. Min-Jae swallowed hard, pushing words past the tightness in his throat. "Why, Aisha?" he whispered. "Why did you leave without a word? Why didn't you tell me I had a son?" The pain in his voice was unmistakable, raw, wounded, desperate. Aisha had seen him angry. She'd seen him stressed. She'd even seen him broken once, but she had never seen him like this. Her eyes shimmered with emotion she had held inside for over a decade. "I didn't want to," she said softly. "But I had no choice." Min-Jae stiffened. And so she told him. Every word felt like reopening a wound she'd spent years trying to stitch shut. Back then, Min-Jae's father, Chairman Park, was a man who valued reputation above humanity. He believed that a Park heir should never be with a foreign intern, no matter how brilliant she was, no matter how much his son loved her. Aisha's voice trembled. "He threatened me, Min-Jae. My job, my visa, even my safety." Min-Jae froze, horror dawning as she continued. "I was pregnant," she whispered. The room went silent. Even little Isaac shifted, sensing the weight in her tone. "And your father found out." Min-Jae felt something sharp twist inside him. Chairman Park, his powerful, controlling father, was gone now, but his shadow still ruled the company, still haunted Min-Jae's every decision. "What did he do?" Min-Jae asked, voice low. Aisha looked down. "He told me if I didn't disappear, he'd destroy my life. And yours. He said he'd make sure your career died before it began, and that I'd never see sunlight again." Min-Jae staggered backward slightly. "He did what?" She nodded painfully. "I tried reaching you, Min-Jae. I swear I did. But my messages were blocked. Security escorted me out of the building. My passport renewal was denied for technical issues. Every door around me closed in 1 week." Min-Jae's fists clenched until his knuckles turned bone white. It wasn't rejection. It wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't abandonment. It was power. It was manipulation. It was a father destroying his son's happiness. Aisha whispered, voice breaking. I left Korea in tears, carrying our child, carrying the life we were supposed to have. For a moment, Min-Jae couldn't speak. His throat felt like it was filled with fire. My father did this, he said slowly, rage flickering in his eyes, silent, deadly, uncontrollable. Aisha nodded. I protected our son the only way I could. Silence fell. Then Min-Jae turned toward Isaac. The boy stood tall, arms crossed, observing him like he was judging whether the stories about the CEO were true. Min-Jae's heartbeat thundered in his ears as he approached, step by step. Then, unexpectedly, he knelt, the all-powerful CEO kneeling on the office carpet before a 10-year-old boy. His voice cracked as he said words he never imagined he'd ever have the chance to speak. I'm your father. Isaac blinked, then shrugged casually. Yeah, I kind of figured. Aisha pressed a hand to her mouth, half laughing, half crying. And for the first time in 11 years, Min-Jae felt hope return to his life. The news didn't just spread through the building. It exploded. Every floor, every hallway, every group chat. The CEO has a son. Aisha Jordan is back. Everything is about to change. Employees whispered behind monitors, pretending to work. Executives paced nervously, wondering what this meant for the company and for their future. Even the board members started calling each other in a panic. But the biggest shock of all? Isaac. The boy wasn't ordinary. He wasn't even close. Within the first hour of being in the building, he had already managed to astonish half the staff. A receptionist asked, "Do you want a snack?" Isaac replied, in perfect Korean, "No, thank you. I ate before arriving." Then he turned to his mother and casually switched to English. "Mom, is Seoul always this crowded?" Minutes later, he corrected a French-speaking investor on the pronunciation of their own company's name. And then came the moment that nearly stopped the entire accounting department. He walked past a senior accountant's monitor, paused, stared for 2 seconds and said, "You typed an extra 0 in the quarterly revenue line." The accountant blinked, checked the file, and gasped. He was right. Word spread so fast that the COO whispered to HR, "He's like a mini CEO, only scarier." Meanwhile, Min-Jae watched silently from a corner of the room. His heart felt full, too full. Pride, regret, love, and something deeper, something he hadn't felt in years. Aisha stood beside him, arms crossed gently, watching her son roam around like he had lived there his whole life. "You raised him alone?" Min-Jae finally asked, voice soft. Aisha nodded. "Yes, but—" She paused. "He always asked about you." Those words hit him harder than any betrayal, any business loss, any fight he had ever survived. For years, Min-Jae had imagined Aisha turning her back on him. But now he realized she had spent those same years answering questions from a boy who deserved a father. Later that evening, he brought them both to the rooftop garden, the place he used to escape when the world felt too heavy. The city lights shimmered beneath them like scattered diamonds. Cold wind brushed past, but warmth filled the space between them. For a long moment they said nothing. Then Min-Jae finally exhaled the words that had lived in his chest for more than a decade. "Aisha," he whispered, his voice trembling, "I never stopped loving you. I never stopped searching. Let me fix everything. Let me be in my son's life. Let me be in yours." Aisha inhaled sharply, eyes glistening under the city lights. Her lips quivered. But before she could speak, Isaac stepped between them, hands on his hips, totally serious. "Mom," he said, pointing at the rooftop, "can we live here? I like this place. And he seems okay." Aisha burst into laughter. Min-Jae laughed too, a deep, relieved, genuine laugh he hadn't felt in 11 long years. And in that moment, with the wind softly circling them, with the lights of Seoul wrapping the rooftop in gold, they didn't feel like three strangers pulled together by fate. They felt like a family finally reunited. The next morning, the entire building buzzed with rumors. Executives paced the halls, assistants whispered, and every department wondered why the CEO had called an emergency board meeting at 7 a.m., a time Min-Jae only used during disasters. They didn't know this was one When Min-Jae walked into the boardroom, he wasn't the calm young billionaire they respected. He was a storm. His eyes were cold, his jaw was sharp with fury, and every board member instantly knew something catastrophic had happened. He set down a stack of documents, proof, files, security logs, screenshots from 11 years ago, and said in a voice that cut through the room like a blade, "Sit!" No one dared breathe. Then he exposed everything: his father's threats against Aisha, the manipulation to block her messages, the illegal denial of her visa renewal, the security escort ordered to erase her from his life, the silence forced between them, the stolen years, and the stolen child he never got to meet. Not one board member moved, not one blinked. Shock froze the room. When he finished, Min-Jae straightened his suit and declared, "Chairman Park cost me 11 years of my life, 11 years of my son's childhood, 11 years of the woman I loved." His voice darkened. "I will never allow this company to operate under fear again." The board sat stiff, waiting for his next move. Then, with absolute authority, he announced, "Aisha Jordan will be the new head of international relations. Isaac is my son, and anyone, board member, executive, or employee who disrespects them or their place in this company will answer directly to me." The room fell to silence. Then one by one, every board member stood and bowed deeply. Aisha stood behind him, stunned. Her hand trembled slightly. No one had ever defended her like this. No one had ever fought for her publicly, powerfully, without hesitation. Isaac, standing beside her, puffed out his chest proudly. For the first time in his young life, he saw his father not just as a CEO, but as a man willing to rewrite the past for his family. As soon as the board meeting ended, the three of them stepped into the hallway, and chaos erupted. Reporters had flooded the 42nd floor. Cameras flashed like lightning. Microphones were shoved forward. Security pushed and shouted, trying to control the wave. Questions exploded around them. "CEO Park, is this really your son? Aisha, are you returning permanently? Are you two back together? What does this mean for the company? What happens next?" But Min-Jae didn't flinch. He didn't run. He didn't hide behind PR statements or guards. Instead, he stepped forward. He wrapped one arm firmly around Aisha's waist, pulling her close like he'd been waiting a decade to do it. With his other hand, he rested a steady grip on Isaac's shoulder. He looked at every camera, every reporter, every witness, and he spoke the three words that changed everything. "We are family." The hallway exploded with blinding flashes. The internet crashed under the weight of the news. Photos went viral instantly. And just like that, a love story once shattered by power, a future stolen by fear, a family torn apart before it began, was finally reclaimed by destiny.